Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And thank you so much for checking out another edition of the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. And this is indeed a special State of the Saints podcast edition. And this is someone I have been watching for quite some time, a guy that a lot of you in the Who That Nation know and respect. And right now I want to bring on the show the host of the Who That Confessional podcast, as well as contributor, to some of the, top Saints reports. You probably see him also breaking down the X's and O's of every Saints game. I'm talking about Deuce Windham. Deuce, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just enjoying the off season. Football ended for me 3 weeks ago. So now watching college tape, watching free agent tape. No other games have been played. So that Pelicans, man, enjoying my Pels.
Yeah, man. Definitely, man. We know that you have a new podcast out focusing on the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll make sure that you talk about that a little bit later. But let's go ahead and talk about on yesterday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers became world champions, man. Winning the Super Bowl 55, complete domination, man, dominating the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, we talked off the air. I know you didn't watch the game, but what are your overall thoughts of watching a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team in 1 year do something that the New Orleans Saints have tried to do since 2017? What was going through your mind when you heard that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the Super Bowl champions?
I mean, would it be the only reason I honestly have a gripe about it is because Tom Brady was the quarterback, because I can't stand Tom Brady. But if you look at a lot of the people that say work with Tampa, not just from Leftwich and Bowles and the coordinator standpoint, but just going down the list and just in my short time being able to work in and around the NFL and with these different people, there's a lot of really good people in that building. Yeah. And more so than the players on the field, what they've actually tried to create in the front office and in the coaching staff is very similar to what the Saints have tried to do to find their success. Yeah. So I'm very happy that those individuals won the Super Bowl, and I just hate that Tom Brady was the one that did it. There's a lot of changes that they made. There was at one point during the game, saying, even though I didn't watch it, you cannot avoid it when social media is around. They're talking about right. Nobody from the Bucs last year scored the early 2 touchdowns that they had. Right. So obviously bringing in new personnel mattered, and it's one of those things where winning a Super Bowl is extremely difficult, no matter what, and things happen. Right. I think most people agree, even outside of New Orleans. You go back to 2008 with the no call. Most people had New Orleans as the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Right. And things happen that prevent you from getting there. Whether it's you will go with the rig thing or not, it's very hard to get there and win. And so shout out to a lot of, and even a couple people from the boot. And dude, a guy from Chance U winning a ring. It's hard to be upset about that. It is. Yeah. But yeah. It's I can't support Brady.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I pretty much know my second question to you, and it was about Sean Payton, and there were reports to say that Sean Payton was interested in Tom Brady if Drew Brees didn't come back. All right. So let's just put you in Sean Payton's mind. Do you think that Sean Payton, watching this game on television, probably thought to himself, he'll never say out loud, he'll never say publicly, but do you think he probably thought just for a second that if Drew would have retired, this could have been us?
I doubt it. I really do. It's because at the same time we talk about how Drew performed. Let's not forget that Brady threw 3 interceptions against Green Bay. Yeah. So as bad as Drew performed in playoffs, Brady also had bad playoff time this year. I mean, to the point where one of the things people are going to argue is that he had a cakewalk to the Super Bowl. Right. You had a 7-9 team to start. You had the division rival that you managed to topple down, who a lot of people see kind of just did to themselves, the Jared Cook fumble, the turnovers. Right. So it wasn't like he went through a gauntlet. He still got his 7th. You can't really take away from that no matter what you say. But right. I think at the end of the day, there's a reason there was no hesitation. As soon as Drew said, I'm ready to come back, it was cut the call with Tom Brady. And they're confident in the decision they made. And I really believe that if Sean could go back, he'd do it the same way every time. I mean, when the Super Bowl happens, things are fresh. Maybe you second guess. But, I mean, can you really? Because at the same time, you look at it, Tom Brady throwing to, Jared Cook and a bunch of no-name receivers due to injury and stuff because Michael Thomas wasn't healthy.
Right.
Who knows what happens? You can't predict it.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. I have to say that knowing Sean Payton, I mean, just knowing, just watching him, he's a guy that really doesn't have any regrets. So I have to tend to agree on that. But man, I mean, as a Saints fan, you can only wonder, man. I mean, I know you're not a Brady fan, but
I mean,
the guy is indeed a winner. You know what I'm saying? And he did, legitimize the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We can talk about that defense all day. I mean, to me, they were the reason why they won that Super Bowl, even though Brady gets all the praise. But man, just going through the motions, Deuce. Going through the motions.
We can't act like he's not a piece, though. He's definitely a piece to why they won. I mean, there's no denying. I mean, you can't get it right. There's a reason. As much as I give credit to Bill Belichick and the dude helped invent the cover 3 match defense the Saints run. Bill Belichick's a genius.
Yeah.
Still a reason Tom Brady won 6 Super Bowls there. Still a reason he goes to another team and wins the Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah, the team was loaded. That defense, especially as the season got on, only got better. They got hot at the right moment. Fantastic in the playoffs, forcing turnovers, all that. But Tom Brady still played better than Drew Brees at one being 2 years older and at this point in their career. So, credit to where I don't want to give it, but you got to give props to the dude. I mean, it's like basketball. I mean, plenty of dudes like, I can't stand AD. Can't stand it. Don't ever come back to New Orleans. He used to be sick every time you play the Pels. But he's still great. He's still hands down a top 3 player in the league. Right. So I can dislike somebody all I want, but that doesn't mean they're not good.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's hard to give credit, what credit is due in this regard. I mean, there were so many pieces. I mean, you can talk about Adam Vinatieri in the beginning of his career, kicking those field goals. Bill Belichick creating some of these defenses and stuff like that to help him as he developed as a quarterback to get over that hump. But when it's all said and done, I mean, 7 championships, man, is undeniable. But let's go ahead and talk about from, one GOAT to a lot of people consider our GOAT. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about Drew Brees here. Drew Brees has not officially announced his retirement, Deuce. We pretty much think that it's a foregone conclusion. Sean Payton has said he's going to come out probably in the next week or two, make his announcement. I'm pretty sure he didn't make an announcement because he didn't want to take away from the Super Bowl. But just following the New Orleans Saints as long as you have, what are the things that you're going to remember about Drew Brees as a Saints quarterback?
Man, there's mostly good, almost all good. In fact, I mean, it's even though I am not like a lot of the generation behind me that remembers growing up with terrible Saints. I mean, my earliest Saints memories were kind of the Ditka eras, but then it was the Haslett years. And we can trash Haslett all we want. Still, first playoff win, playoff appearance. Right. Still, I mean, most of those teams until Katrina happened were still going like 8-8. So it wasn't like you were having a perennial failure. You just weren't good enough. You're still okay. Right. So I never really got to experience the days of just them being god awful. Mm-hmm. But I've never had a day of that with Drew Brees, ever. Even the 7-9 seasons were still just like, man, this dude's good. This defense is just awful. It's terrible. I mean, 2016 is one of my favorite Drew Brees seasons of all time, but nobody will think about it because it's 7-9. And, that was after that season. You listen to his post-season interviews, he's thinking about quitting. Yeah, he's ready to hang it up. I mean, 3 straight 7-9 seasons. It's not working. It's not going anywhere. Right. And that's also right around the point where you can see the decline start. I mean, it's very, very, very small. He was still throwing 45-yard bombs to Brandon Cooks in stride. So he's still doing fine. But, he was also getting to that point where, now you're getting in the upper 30s. It's going to start going down. Yeah. So you got to go back to winning. I'm always going to remember him as a winner. Yeah. It's going to be very, very difficult to envision in my lifetime a quarterback coming in and being better than Drew Brees was in New Orleans. Right. I mean, you're getting over a decade of every single year he's in the running to be the MVP, essentially. Right. I mean, what more can you ask for? Yeah, there are going to be people who complain that, he didn't win enough Super Bowls and all that.
Mm-hmm.
He never won an MVP award. I don't care about that. Personally, he's just a goat at what he was. He's amazing. And I just hope that we can find somebody in the realm of where he was in the future.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I'm just thinking about Drew Brees. And, a lot of people talk about, the Saints winning one Super Bowl. But Deuce, you talked about it. There were some terrible years in the Saints organization. And I put Drew Brees championship kind of in the same realm of LeBron James, right? When LeBron went to Miami, everybody was saying, man, LeBron, he won with Wade and Bosh. And he went back to Cleveland and he beat a red-hot Golden State Warriors team. And people were talking about how that ring probably meant more than those two rings out in Miami because of how he did it. I look at it the same way with Drew Brees. This was a snake-bitten franchise. Like, I can remember those days.
Yeah.
Like, growing up, I was born in 86. So, I can remember sitting on my grandmother's floor, who's a huge Saints fan, and watching these guys just lose. I'm talking about, man, you can go to Swagman's, a local grocery store, and buy Saints tickets at a gas station, man. It was some bad times. And I just feel like when he brought a championship back into this franchise in 2009, to me, it meant more than you probably would, people that take it for granted out in New England or Dallas even, ones that were winning championships all the time. So to me, that's what I'm going to remember, the pride. Like, this guy, like, we can talk about him all he want. People are trying to rush him out of the door. People saying, please retire. But this guy was the New Orleans Saints. He legitimized his franchise. You know what I'm saying? Good times, bad 100%. Times. We all knew fourth quarter, no matter what the deficit was, we still had a chance when number 9 was the quarterback, man. That's what I'm gonna remember about it. Yeah. And we now we transition.
That's the great memories to have, man.
Yeah. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I would say that's it's when I think of Drew, there's always specific plays that come up. Going all the way back to what was it, 11? Hitting Henderson in stride against the Bears for 75 yards. And, even just a couple of years ago, the spin move against 2 Falcons in the end zone. You can never forget his effort. Like, no matter what, there's a reason he's got the NFL record for the most blown fourth quarters. Yeah. He always drove you back. The team just didn't always support him when he got there. Ultimate competitor, and I think he's extremely relatable for a lot of us in the boot because, honestly, the dude's not that physically impressive. Like, if you ever get a chance to meet him, talk to him, it's not like he's an athlete. Like, he's not a prototypical quarterback. Having the opportunity to talk to tons of college quarterbacks and NFL quarterbacks and, my time covered, he is definitely like if Drew wasn't an NFL player, you would just swear the dude was like working at a local bank or something. He is not 6 foot. I don't care what people say. He is literally like an inch and a half taller than I am, and I'm 5'10".
Wow.
So he's not a huge dude. Now, he's very in shape, obviously, all that other stuff. But, like, when you're around NFL players, and if you're a fan of the game, when the Senior Bowl runs around, that's something that's available to fans. Go to the Senior Bowl and actually get to be around those college athletes going to the NFL.
Yeah.
You really see how outclassed you are. If you really want to feel small, go to an NBA game or an NBA practice. But Drew is built like a regular dude who can just throw the football extremely well. So I think that kind of made him even more approachable to us because he feels like a regular person. He doesn't feel like some special dude that got brought in. He feels like just somebody that managed to make it and overcome what was limitations, because people have talked about his limitations his whole career, and he has overcome that. That's fantastic, and that makes us, coming from we're like the 4th poorest state in the daggone country. We want that type of mentality. We want to be able to think that we don't have to be 6'4" and perfect pedigree, 5-star athletes. Right. Sometimes you can make it by just actually being good at something.
Yeah. Final question about Drew, Deuce. Would you consider Drew Brees as the greatest overachiever in NFL history?
Man, that's tough. I think, one, when it comes to any type of greatest conversation, I think you always got to take it in perspective of the era that they're playing in.
Right.
Like, you look at Dan Marino. Dan Marino was highly touted, big pick, never won a Super Bowl, so he doesn't get a lot of the name recognition. But you actually go watch the dude play, he was phenomenal. He literally had a terrible team. It was just Dan Marino. That was it. There was nobody else. It was just Dan Marino. Right. Name another player on the Dolphins in the 80s. Good luck. Yeah, Drew definitely overachieved based on draft status and the injury that happened to him and everything. But there's also dudes I look at like Frank Gore. Frank Gore, at his age, is still playing in the NFL at a position that has an average life expectancy of 3 years. Most running backs are out of the league after 3 years.
Right.
Even the greats. I mean, the only person that has the longevity of Frank Gore is Adrian Peterson. Everybody else is gone.
Yeah.
I mean,
true.
Frank Gore, I remember 2006, they used to put up, you had the 49ers versus the Saints, and it was Gore versus Bush. It was this whole stupid talking point that everybody wanted because, the former presidents and everything. I was like, Reggie's been out of the league like a decade. Like, when's the last time Reggie touched the football? I mean, but Frank's still around. Like, Frank won the Jets their first game this season. Like, he was like, we is not going completely defeated. We're going to win one. And it was on the back of Frank Gore. So, I think Drew has a legitimate argument to be the greatest quarterback ever. But as far as greatest overachiever, there's a lot of people in that room. And I think Drew just really needs to get the respect of, doing what he did on the field. And hopefully one day we stop attributing wins to quarterbacks and start attributing what they actually did and what they did for their team. Because when you talk about what he did for the team, he's right up there with the Bradys, with the Montanas, with the Mannings. He doesn't have the hardware to support it, but in terms of what he did on the field, it's undeniable.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that I look at it from this particular standpoint. Like, I look at a person's greatness, not just what they did on the field, but them trailblazing a path for others. I just look at it like if Drew Brees wasn't as good as he was or is, would there be a Russell Wilson? Would there be a Baker Mayfield? Would there be a Kyler Murray? Like, would people be willing to give these shorter quarterbacks an opportunity, even though they had the skills? I mean, I say, you can make an argument to say Doug Flutie had to die so Drew Brees could live, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like he's a trailblazer. You know what I'm saying? Not only a great quarterback, but people really start looking like, hey, man, this guy can ball out. Maybe I need to start looking at this shorter guy named Baker, this shorter guy named Kyler. So I think in that regards, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would say, he is an overachiever, and just nobody really, like, did you know what to expect? Like, watching this guy in 2006 with the ugliest shirt I ever seen in my life for a press conference. But you know what I'm saying? Did you ever just expect this guy like to just be as great as he is? Like, I mean, it's like
that's what I love about like everybody who instantly dismisses the quarterback they don't like. Like, I don't care if you like Jameis Winston or not, but to instantly dismiss him before he started with New Orleans is ridiculous because not a single person, nobody thought Drew Brees was going to be a Hall of Famer in 2006. No. Yes, he was already an established good quarterback. He had made the Pro Bowl once. He was getting better. But you can make the same argument for Jameis. Jameis made a Pro Bowl. Doesn't mean that he's the greatest of all time. Right. So nobody could have foresaw what Drew ended up doing, including his tacky shirts, which honestly Drew's never gotten really good in terms of
horrible.
Like, people have helped him out. I mean, Mike's helped him with the shoe game, and Drew's kind of gotten really into like the whole sports shirt. Like, dude, we don't need to see your abs at 40 years old. I'm glad you have them. Keep them to yourself. Keep them to yourself. That's my big thing with Drew is throughout all of this, he created that. Like, when Manning went to Denver, you knew legitimate Super Bowl champions.
Right.
There was not a question. He had established himself as a great quarterback. Drew didn't do that. Drew was just a regular starter that got released for a young gun who also leaving the league now. Phillip Rivers, that is. So I don't know, man. There's nothing that you can really say that encompasses what all Drew has done. I mean, he really did beat every odd, every naysayer, and he's the most accurate gunslinger of all time. He's going to be the Saints' greatest player for a long time, maybe ever. Yeah. I mean, there's too many accolades. I mean, the dude's literally got dozens of NFL records that are going to take years to break if they're ever broken.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Definitely one of the all-time greats. But now we got to focus on the future. You know, the future. Is it Jameis Winston? Is it Taysom Hill? Or is it like someone else that possibly could not even be in the NFL yet? I mean, there's one name that always seems to be coming up, Deuce, and that's Mack Jones, the quarterback out of Alabama. And I don't know if you got an opportunity to scout him just yet or had an opportunity to really, you know, watch him. But what's all the hoopla about? You know, like what is it about Mack Jones out of all the other quarterbacks that you hear about? The Jamie Nelsons, you know, the guy out of North Dakota State, like I mean Trey Lance. Like what is it about Mack Jones that just got Saints fans going absolutely bonkers about?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. He's in the SEC, so they see him. That's no offense, all Saints fans, but I mean, there's a strong correlation between Saints fans and LSU fans. We're in the same area. We watch the same games. You know, would I say that Mack Jones is better than Zach Wilson out of BYU? No, I would not. That doesn't mean I'm not saying Mack Jones is bad, but the two things is one, he's in the SEC, so you've gotten to see him. You've gotten to see him succeed, and then two, because he's not considered the best quarterback in the draft, there's a possibility that he's actually there in the late 20s when the Saints are drafting, assuming they don't move up in the draft for somebody. No, I'll say there's definitely some things that Mack Jones does really well, and you consider what he had to do following Tua, which is, you know, big shoes to fill. I think he had a good campaign. The thing that I look at with him is a lot of his deficiencies he's going to have to overcome just like Drew Brees did. And can he do that? Like, for example, he is not the best sized quarterback. He's like 6'2". He's not this big. You know, you look at the prototypes, you're looking at the Peyton Mannings, the Ben Roethlisbergers. You want these big 6'6" dudes with wide frames that can take hits and see over lines. Well, Mack Jones is not that. He's like 6'2", 215, 220 pounds, so slightly smaller, still bigger than Drew Brees. And he also doesn't have a great arm, like in terms of arm strength. He's not Josh Allen coming in the league and slinging it at 80 yards. Like, I've watched Josh Allen flat-footed 70-yard throw. Like, some people got howitzers. Go back and watch Josh Allen in the combine. They actually have throwing drills. I forget who the quarterback was before, but quarterback tried to throw about a 40-yard pass in the combine and went slightly to the left, and you could tell he put his whole body into it. Like, he's like, this is going to fly. And then, no. And then Josh Allen up next is like literally just like flick of the wrist, cannon, just shoots 60 yards down the field, laser beams. Man. Some people have that extreme arm talent. Right. Other people don't. Mack Jones is not. You can overcome that by having great touch, great precision, knowing great timing and ball placement. And I think those are all things that he can do. Right. But right now, he fits in a West Coast style offense, which is what the Saints run. And he's going to be a early system quarterback until he progresses into something better. There's a lot of options I'd have above Mack Jones right now. I still think he's good. I would probably have him as a low second-round value, like if I had to grade him. Right. You know, I haven't done a draft guide in a couple of years, but I put him somewhere around that. You look at, you know, Kyle Trask. Is Kyle Trask better or worse? I'd probably like him more than I like Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask more that prototypical size. Right. But like I said, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, those are two guys that you would like a lot both. So I don't think the Saints draft a quarterback, though. Just to be honest with you. I don't think it happens. All right. I don't think you need a first-round quarterback.
What position do you think in the first round, since we're talking about it? What do you think? Linebacker, cornerback, maybe? What are we looking at?
I think this is a really hard year to predict because every year we've had the draft for several years, the Saints have fallen in love with a guy, and you find out who it is pretty early. You know, the year Brandon Cooks got drafted, we knew at the combine, if you were listening to the people on the inside, Brandon Cooks was the guy. They were in love with it. You know, if you go back to Marcus Davenport's year, Senior Bowl, fell in love with it. They knew. You go back to just last year, Nick Underhill told you, Zach Ball and Cesar Ruiz, that's the guys. Right. This year, I haven't heard nothing like that. Now, if somebody knows, like Nick, they've definitely kept it under wraps. You know, if Nick's the one to ask if there's going to be somebody to know. Even AK's like, he's got more sources than me. So, but this year, there's not really that feel. Right. And I think with you not having the combine, with you not having the, in-person meetings, you can't do any of that this year. Right. The Saints probably aren't going to be likely to risk on a quarterback in the first round. I just don't see it. I also know that Sean Payton is extremely confident in Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. Yeah. So the likelihood of drafting a quarterback in the first round seems low to me. which means that they still see this team as a competitive team, which
Right.
means skill positions is going to be a top priority. You look at the secondary because you still got to put, do they keep Marcus Williams? Is he ended up moving because of the cost? You look at edge rusher, and then offensive line is going to continue to be that fallback.
Right.
You know, especially tackle. Teron Armstead is still amazing, still Pro Bowl, All-Pro level, but
Right.
the injuries, plus he is starting to get to that 30 range where now you start looking at it being how many years does he have left?
Right.
So I'd say the percentage of taking a quarterback less than 5%. It can happen, but more than likely, I think you're looking at this year being a great year for wide receivers. And one exciting thing for me is for a long time with Drew, you had to take certain things out to fit his prototype.
Right.
And there's not a problem with that. You do that, you build a team around your guy. So you had to build certain types around Drew. You never really built the super speed around Drew. You did it a couple times and had success, but as he aged, you had to take that element away. I mean, you were drafting guys like Traquan Smith to play flanker and be a burner. Traquan has never been a Brandon Cooks, Devery Henderson type speed 7 through 9. He can run those routes, but that's not necessarily his game. Right. With a new quarterback coming in, let's say it is Jameis Winston, who does have a lot more arm strength than Drew. Well, that changes things. You can actually go for that now, where before the only receivers that you ever drafted in Sean Payton were 6 foot and about 200 pounds or bigger, with the exception of Brandon Cooks. Now you can look at, say, like a guy like Kadarius Toney, who is only like 5'11", who's a speed, shifty guy. Mm-hmm. But now that you have people who can throw those balls, maybe you go out and draft that type of player that you would never normally draft. Right. So I really feel like, from who I've talked to, the Saints still feel like they are able to compete next year without Drew. They really do feel that this is a team that can still win 10 to 13 games. It can still compete for the division title, even though the Super Bowl champs will be hanging a banner. And God knows the Saints are probably going to have to go to Tampa week 1 and watch that banger getting hung. Yeah. So I think that, that's the position I'd be looking at. I'd be looking at secondary and receivers because they want to improve, make sure they stay on the top of that area, and then have success and continue to be a competing team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're a really good football team. I mean, what's their record? 8-1 without Drew Brees in the last couple of years. So, I mean, this team, like, you can kind of see the writing on the wall, though, Deuce. When Drew was out, you seen like the Mario Davis emerge as that leader. He was the one inside of the huddle. And then you start to see Teron Armstead and Cam Jordan kind of, dominate the interviews. And you rarely, Drew Brees used to have like his weekly press conferences, but you seen like other guys like in the forefront more so. And this team has been structured for the last 2 years for life outside of Drew Brees, in my opinion. I think the way that this defense has been playing, the running game, the offensive line, I think that they're prepared to, for life outside of Drew Brees. But you talked about Jameis. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just agreeing with you. I mean, they've definitely been – you look at the focus on O-line, D-line in the draft. You look at the receivers and stuff they built. They're ready to plug in somebody else at quarterback and win.
Yeah. So. I mean, you talked about Jameis Winston, and this has been a topic of a conversation, and you get a mixed bag from the Who Dat Nation. Some people feel like you need to give Jameis a chance. You got other people that just can't get past the 30 for 30 special that he put on back in 2019. But Sean Payton has been really giddy. I haven't seen him this giddy about somebody in a while. It seems like he really wants Jameis back. And when he talks about the team, it seems like he wants Jameis to be his starter. First question I have for you about this whole situation. Okay, Jameis Winston had the arm talent. He had the ability. And I think we all can agree that he was a better quarterback than Taysom Hill. But do you feel like Sean Payton took Jameis Winston to the side? Because he seen like what happened a couple of years ago with Teddy Bridgewater. I feel like he thought Teddy Bridgewater could have been a succession plan. He was counting on Drew Brees to have that longevity, never getting hurt. But then Teddy comes in and he wins 5 games, and everybody saw how good Teddy, was playing, and they looked at him like, man, we can get this guy. Do you feel like he probably helped Jameis fix some of the issues that he have, but he didn't want to show his hand? Do you think that he did that, so he decided to just go ahead and with Taysom?
I know that's a prevalent argument, and I think that no matter what side of this you stand on, we're all doing conjecture here because we can never really know unless you get in Sean Payton's mind. I don't think so. I think that, for one, he promised Taysom Hill the chance.
Yeah.
And two, from a scouting perspective, and if you follow, Jeff Ireland and Fontenot, I mean, this is what they've had to do, and this is why the team has been successful because of names like that. You have to get those real reps to truly evaluate a guy. I mean, for a quarterback or any position, you want a minimum of 200 snaps to even get an idea of what you're working with.
Right.
And when you're doing a college player, you look at that, and they have a pro scouting department devoted to that exact same thing. So with Taysom, he can do whatever he wants in practice, training camp, and he's had tons of time at quarterback there. They've gotten to see him. You can do that for 4 years, and it doesn't mean anything until you actually get it in a game. You can actually show what you can do. Right. So they had to do that. And I know a lot of people want to say, well, why would they waste time evaluating a quarterback when they're trying to win a division and go for a Super Bowl?
Right.
Because at the same time, you're still confident in him. You're letting him prove himself, but you're only giving him the chance because you think he can be successful. Right. But it's one of those things like they're not mutually exclusive. There's always a duality. You could be playing a guy to not only have success, but to also scout and see if he's the future. Because like I said, you've got a team that can win.
Right.
You've got a team that if you put in Teddy Bridgewater, you're going to win as much as you lose at the minimum. If you put in Taysom, you're going to win as much as you lose because the team's too good. They're too good to go 6-10, unless the quarterback just is god awful and does 4 turnovers a game.
Right.
So I think that Taysom had to get evaluated. You know what Jameis looks like in the NFL. You got years of it. You can hate it. That's fine. Hate it. I will say this. Everybody that hates Jameis Winston because of his 30 for 30, the guy who scouted him and brought him to the Saints literally just got hired as a GM. So, it's what do you like or hate? That was Fontenot's job. He scouted Jameis Winston and said, look, of all the guys who could come in right now, he really fits. And the Saints waited. They were able to get him on a super cheap deal. Worked out for everybody.
Right.
The Saints feel like he could be the guy. Can he? I don't know. Let's find out. But, with Taysom, we got enough to get an evaluation of Taysom. Now the argument is how much can he grow from what we saw, and is it worth the time to put in because he is 30 years old? Or you go with the guy who's 4 years younger, has had issues, but has also had a lot of success. I mean, so there's definitely either side of the argument, whatever side y'all want to take, cool. Just as long as you're being fair to both sides. Right. You can't say Jameis is going to be terrible because of the 30 for 30 because his first 3 years were actually pretty decent.
Right.
With an offensive coordinating and a system that wasn't really – neither offense is as good as Sean Payton. I'll say that.
Yeah. And
Byron Leftwich literally just won a Super Bowl. He's still not as good of an offensive play caller as Sean Payton. Doesn't mean he's bad. I still think that man deserves a shot. Give that man an HC interview. Right. Sean Payton's probably the greatest that we've ever seen as an offensive play caller. And the numbers back that up from a historical argument.
Right.
So if you think that anybody can have success, well, it's coming and playing with Sean Payton. If anybody's going to make somebody successful, it's Sean. So I think that is the mold there. If anybody can make Taysom successful, it's Sean Payton. If anybody can make Jameis successful, it's Sean Payton. And I think either way they go, they could win games. The argument is who do you win more?
Yeah. I mean, looking at Jameis Winston over the past few years when he was in Tampa, like you said, like when he first got there, he had some pretty decent seasons, and you can look at his touchdown to interception ratio. It was kind of similar to that of Drew. I think people tend to forget that Drew used to throw like 15, 16 interceptions in a season, but it's just the fact that he was throwing for all those yards and all those touchdowns. It kind of like, makes people tend to forget, right? But I just think that when you look, I totally agree with what you're saying about Sean Payton. Sean Payton, one thing about him, he will never, ever ask a player to do something that he's uncomfortable with. Bruce Arians will. Like, if you look at Tom Brady when he first got to Tampa, it was Bruce Arians' system. You're going to do it my way. We're going to push the ball down the field. It wasn't until he finally, swallowed his pride and started to put little pieces of what New England, what Tom Brady did in New England into the Bucs system, and they started to become successful. When Sean Payton is going to look at Jameis, he's not going to ask Jameis to do all type of things that Jameis is not comfortable with. Mm-hmm. You already mentioned that he's going to build a team around Jameis, and he's going to get guys that are in place to make Jameis' life more comfortable so he can make better decisions. You already got somebody. If that pass down the field isn't there, you can check it down to Alvin Kamara. He can, turn chicken, into, chicken salad. You know what I'm saying? So you already got that going for yourself. So I just feel like people just need to give this guy an opportunity And, I honestly just feel like he can't resurrect his career, man, because, man, I mean, you have all those different coordinators, all those different head coaches. I mean, the organization, they're Super Bowl champs now, but let's not act like this is a top-notch organization that always was winning. You know what I'm saying? It was a train wreck. They had him. He was the number 1 overall pick. They picked him for a reason because they weren't really good. And you add the lack of offensive line, good offensive line play. They wasn't really running the football. They had Doug Martin, but he was in and out of the lineup. It was just the Jameis Winston show. And, so I just feel like when you come in as the number 1 pick, you are the guy. Everybody's looking at you to lead the franchise and take the stench of mediocrity off of them. But now you're just like, you come to New Orleans, you're just a guy. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not, you're the quarterback, but you're just a guy. Nobody's like expecting you alone to change the fortunes of a franchise. So I'm willing to give him a chance when it comes to just quarterback play. I think he'll be a much better quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. And while once again we're making predictions here, it's one of the biggest reasons that a lot of quarterbacks fail is because they have to start immediately in their first year. Right. And adapt to the NFL is difficult. And, when you have a completely new system that comes in like Bruce Arians, you mentioned how he forced a lot of things. People forget Bruce Arians was throwing Tom Brady under the bus the first couple of months of the season.
Yeah.
Like, he was straight up coming to be like, yeah, Brady's not playing how he wanted to. Like, why would you come after a man with 6 rings like that? And, I mean, I enjoyed it because I was like, oh, they're dysfunctional. They're going to suck. Right. We find out they didn't suck. But, that's just kind of how it is. And as you said, Sean will build around the player regardless, because we saw him do that with Teddy. A lot of the play changed with Teddy. A lot of it changed with Taysom. Right. And it changed with Drew. And it changed with Drew over the years. I've got, the 2011 playbook. I've got the 2015 Saints playbook. They're different. He's constantly adapting and evolving to what's going on. Now, is he perfect? No. There's plenty of those drives that we get to scream at him for throwing 3 straight passes and going 3 and out. Right. But in terms of what he can do, I just keep hitting on this point. Sean Payton can take either Taysom, Jameis, and win. It's a question of how many wins and who you think's better. Because nobody at the end of the day is going to come in and be prime Drew Brees. Nobody. Right. Unless you manage to do something stupid like give away 18 draft picks for Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. If you bring in a top 3 quarterback, sure. Finally, maybe you have somebody to do that. But do I think Jameis can be Brees? No. But that's okay. Because you can still win regardless of that. And maybe he does end up with a Brees-like development. Who knows? But right now, all you really need is somebody to be competent because you've got stars. Alvin Kamara was Offensive Player of the Year worthy. He plays at that level for 2, 3, 4 more years. Michael Thomas comes back healthy after his surgeries. The defense continues to be a top 10 unit, top 15 unit. You don't need a quarterback to be a Hall of Famer. You just need him to be good, progress, and then, as I always say, it's getting into the playoffs that matters. It doesn't matter if you're a 14-2 team. Be 7-9 and get in the playoffs. The Bucs' toughest game, the game the Bucs almost lost the most, wasn't even New Orleans. It was Washington. That was the game they probably lost in the playoffs. It was right there. Washington couldn't close it out because they were on like their 9th string quarterback. They don't even have a team name. It just wasn't working. It didn't play out. Right. But that's football. You just got to get there. And then you see what happens from that point. This team is a playoff team. And they just have to keep that same, vibe going. Yeah, I believe in this team. And like I said, I believe in life after Drew Brees, the way that this team is structured. I mean, you got leadership from top to bottom, and these are guys that, they're battle tested. Look, I know we keep saying this, but they're battle tested. I mean, they have lost in some of the worst ways possible. I mean, there's no other way that you can actually lose. You lose when everybody think that you're going to win. You know what I'm saying? Like you lose in heartbreaking fashion, rather it be a 57-yard field goal from Greg Zuerlein, a controversial 9 call, a 10-second touchdown by Stephon Diggs. Like it is like, I mean, look, it can't get no worse. You know what I'm saying? So it only can get better from here, in my opinion. So, but my final question to you is, Saints got a lot of decisions to make here, in the offseason. I mean, you got a lot of these players that were part of
the best draft class in NFL history, in my opinion. The 2017 draft. You got people like Trey Hendrickson, Marcus Williams, Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk. The list goes on and on. But the biggest debate is who do you keep? You have Trey Hendrickson, who has given you great production this season. He led the team in sacks, and he was in top 5 in sacks in the National Football League. And you also have Marcus Williams, a guy who, to me, played a lot better than he did in years past, becoming a much better tackler. We know about his ball hawking skills. But, Deuce, just put your GM hat on just for a tad bit. And tell us, if you had a choice between these two guys, Marcus Williams, Trey Hendrickson, which one will you bring back for the 2021 season?
Marcus Williams 100 times out of 100. It's and I love what Trey's done. I love what Trey's developed. I mean, I've covered Trey for a long time. I gave him his nickname. Very proud of that. Not everybody can give some nicknames out. So, yeah, I love his success that he had. At the same time, about a third of his sacks came from him just individually dominating a guy, winning and creating it by himself.
Right.
A third. He actually had one of the lowest sack rates in terms of individual production amongst every sack leader in the NFL. He was, I think, like 17th or something. You know, that doesn't mean he's bad. It simply means that the defensive line as a unit was good.
Right.
The Saints' sack numbers aren't really different between this year and last year. The unit, especially with Ron Nielsen, can manufacture the pressure and sacks they need. Cameron Jordan gets 15 sacks one year. The next year, he's helping T-Rex get 15, or 13 and a half. The Saints are going to be successful as long as they can continue to address the edge. And don't forget that as much as Davenport hasn't lived up to a lot of people's hype, and he did take a step back this past year, he's still a guy under a cheap contract right now, much cheaper than what that Hendrickson's going to probably sign for in the offseason. And then you look at the important thing in the back end. A lot of the defensive line sacks for years that we've had some success these past 3 or 4 years have come from the coverage. Marcus Williams for 2 years has played extremely well, and this was his best year of his career.
Yeah.
And if it was just the contract year, I could be like, okay, maybe I'm hesitant. But he was also good last year, and he showed improvement every year following. And you look at some of the most important stats. A lot of the times when we talk about a guy playing better contract year, it's more a covering up of deficiencies. He's still bad at certain things, but he's playing out of his mind.
Right.
He's actually improved on his deficiencies. One of the biggest things we talked about him has always been broken, missed tackles.
Yep.
He had one of the lowest missed tackle rates on the team this year.
Yep.
But early part of his career, that was his thing. Like, he missed tackles all the time.
Right.
He doesn't now. He hasn't really for 2 years. He's constantly improved his game, and the secondary has not been giving up the 40-yard passes that if you really feel like that's a problem, please watch most teams in the NFL against guys like Justin Herbert, who are just throwing the ball 45, 50 yards every other drive, and they're giving up big plays. The Saints aren't really doing that.
Yep.
Marcus Williams is that. And I feel like if you've got great secondary play, you can bring in another guy to be that pass rusher and give them that extra second they need to get there.
Right.
If you keep T-Rex, can you guarantee his ability to individually dominate left tackles improves enough to where if you replace a high-end safety, you're fine? Yeah. I don't know if you can. I would love to keep T-Rex, but not for the probably 10 to 15 a year he's going to end up being valued at, because anytime you get to 10-plus sacks in the league, you automatically go to about $1 million per sack. Doesn't matter if you're good or not. Look around the league. You start hitting those numbers, they pay to have you on the team because sacks is a key stat. I think sacks is an overrated stat, but until the NFL catches up with that terminology and that ideology, they're going to keep paying for it. And he deserves to get paid too. Shout out to the man for getting 13 and a half. Yeah. But I don't think the Saints can keep him. I would take Marcus Williams.
Yeah, I agree with you with the Marcus Williams standpoint. Look, I think Marcus Williams to me is a Minneapolis Miracle away from being a no-brainer. Like, that's the only reason why anybody in the Who Dat Nation, to me, would have a problem with him, because they can't let go of what happened in Minneapolis. Like, him missing that tackle. I mean, because let's just say, for example, Stephon Diggs catches the ball and Ken Crawley tackles him, or even Marcus Williams tackles. Like, everybody would be screaming, sign Marcus Williams, sign Marcus Williams. I mean, like the guy, you can say that when he's out there, he's giving it his best effort. You know what I'm saying? And then he's always constantly getting better. Now, when I look at Trey Hendrickson, I'm always skeptical, dudes, about when a guy is doing great things in their contract year. Like, for example, with Von Bell. Like, I like Von Bell a lot, but Von Bell probably had his best statistical season when it was his contract year. You know, I feel like.
Well, I would say with all these guys we're talking about, there's been continual progression. Like Von Bell got better year after year after year. So it's not like he just kind of came out of nowhere. Right. Because remember, Von Bell started off as a free safety, replacing Jarris Byrd. That wasn't working. They flipped him to strong. He did get better. And T-Rex was the same way. I mean, T-Rex is coming off a year of 4.5. I mean, he's definitely been growing as a pass rusher. So I don't think it's kind of like one of those, like, you know, out of nowhere, this dude got 10 sacks. Yeah. Can he do it again? I do think that T-Rex is a starting caliber defensive end, and I think that, you know, he could still have good numbers. But do I want to throw $10 million a year at it?
No. Well, I guess I'm saying is like just the numbers that he putting up. I mean, I just didn't see consistency like from year to year, like with Von Bell. I mean, he did good things, but I just feel like with Marcus Williams, like you see little nuances in his game that are different from year to year. And it just shows me that a guy is just trying to get better. Like I would never imagine like a couple plays where I would actually see Marcus Williams laying the wood to anybody. You know, that hit on Calvin Ridley. You know what I'm saying? Just some of the hits that I never thought that I would see that. You know what I'm saying? And I just have respect for that. You know, and I just feel like people are just holding that Minneapolis Miracle against him. Trey Hendrickson. It's not just, you know, I seen it coming. I mean, he's gotten better, you know what I'm saying? But you have to think about like the injuries also, you know, it's been plaguing him throughout his career. And like you said, I mean, when you know, demanding a double team, like how are you gonna overcome that? You know, like everybody's paying attention to Cam Jordan, you know, like they still paying attention to Cam Jordan and they're paying attention to some of these other players. And if you win in one-on-ones, I mean, that's fine, you know what I'm saying? But what's going to happen when you are the guy? Like when everybody is focused on you, when people, you know, are trying to scheme and trying to come up with a game plan against you, how are you going to overcome that? I do feel like he's going to get a lot of money. I think he's probably going to end up in Jacksonville and New York. But if it was me, I agree with you. I would definitely take Marcus Williams. But Deuce, thank you so much for your time, man. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for being a part of the State of the Saints podcast. And before you go, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you and also about your podcast.
Yeah, so I got the Who Dat Confessional podcast. We've been going on for, feels like maybe 4 or 5 years now. It's been a while. So we got Ross Jackson on there with me right now. And then we also just started the From the Wing podcast, cover the Pelicans, which has been fantastic because I'm really excited about this Pelicans team. I mean, this Pelicans team made me go buy 2K. So I mean, it's like I had to go buy 2K to play with the Pels. I think this is just a great time to be a NOLA sportsman. I mean, no matter what, you've got some level of success happening at all times. And we're here to cover for you on the channel. All you got to do is literally look up my name, Deuce Windham, or Who Dat Confessional, or From the Wing, whatever. And you can find all my stuff. So.
Yeah, man, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much for being on the State of the Saints podcast once again. We look forward to your commentary and your scouting reports, breaking down those X's and O's for us, and also, you know, your commentary on the Pelicans. Thank you so much, Deuce.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, take it easy.